Oh, absolutely.
Get seated.
Oh, I really did. And I really liked it when my opponents arrived late. I was already in the zone. I was familiar with the noises, the tapping, air conditioner. So my opponent would arrive late, very irritably. He'd be writing down the moves, and then he'd look around and say, "What's up with the noise from the air conditioner?" It's sort of like I kind of smiled internally thinking, yeah, idiot, I already dealt with that, they're going to be turning it off.
Yep.
As we're looking at our marquee players right here. And for Nodirbek, I wanted to say his loss in the Blitz, I think for him especially, he prides himself on being a great blitzer.
Yep.
Oh my goodness,
and
a Scandinavian.
We have a Scandinavian. It's not often
rare
we
bird.
see this one. And it's the Queen D6 variation. After D4, is it Knight F6? And this is the big question. After Knight F3, is he going to go for A6 or C6? But instead, Knight comes out to C6.
Now this is a very, very, very rare continuation. Knight to C6.
Okay, but then you just drop your Queen back to D8 and you breathe a sigh of relief.
Well, let's say I can go Bishop F4.
And that's going to be met by the Knight coming to D5.
Exactly. And it's sort of like after all of that toing and froing, what have you accomplished as Black? So Bishop F4, Knight D5, Queen to D2. I presume you want to play A6? Nope, he didn't do it. Bishop
E2. Well, you've accomplished one thing. The whole goal of the Scandinavian is that you want White to put the Knight on C3.
Okay.
Just so that you're not able to go C3. And ultimately, you want to make this dark squared bishop on C1 bad. So in an ideal world, you'll take away the G5 square, the F4 square as well. And this is also a very key point, which I've forgotten about. You want your light squared bishop out. Bishop out to G4.
Bishop to G4. Magnus is taking a very wait-and-see approach. His idea is that his knight on C3 has now maneuvered itself towards the E5 square. So he's going to play C2, C3. You mentioned that the knight on C3 may be in the way of the C-pawn, or simply to play knight E5. I personally find these positions attractive for White. I don't like them because I think this pawn on D4 versus the pawn on E6 with the knight sitting on C6 is not nice. So I like White, I like to play H3, and I like to play bishop to F4 and just to eyeball this pawn.
That's true, but once the bishop gets to F4, you often go knight to D5, and you say, where are you going to go?
H2.
H2.
Bishop back to H2. I like the London system, where you eyeball the pawn on C7, and your bishop is a trusted guard to your king's palace. Bishop F4 on the board. I think that Magnus will be pleased with the outcome of the opening. I think he's got a little bit of a nibble here. Clock times?
Well, both players, they're around the 4-minute mark. We see Abdusattorov there with the black pieces, 4 minutes and 15 seconds, and Magnus Carlsen just over 4 minutes. Bishop G3.
Okay. I'm more Karpovian, I would say. In this case, I would have played Bishop H2. I'm sure this is just a simple matter of taste at the moment. How does White improve his play? Well, first of all, you connect the rooks. Something like Queen D2. It's always nice to have the rooks connected, and then you bring them into the center. Rook to E1, rook to D1, and then you look for it. Yeah. Am I going to play knight E5? Am I going to play for C4? Well, that helps answer the question.
Yeah, that certainly does answer your questions, because I thought Black was simply going to go bishop F6, do exactly the same, Queen D7, and just be very comfortable playing with less space, waiting for White to react. But B5...
For me, that was a very, very big consequential move, because first of all, you create a target. You're asking White, please come and attack me with A4. Secondly, you're weakening, very, very much so, the C5 square. So Bishop D6, I think it's natural for White to now play knight E4, target the C5 square.
Yeah. And one thing I would absolutely not advocate is bishop takes bishop, because then White will simply capture with the pawn. And the pawn structure is now suddenly very beautiful. But knight E4, as you predicted on the board, Yasser, And both players around the 3.5 minute mark.
I truly would like to emphasize for the audience what you just said. Do not take the bishop on d6. You help black straighten out the pawn structure, and you help black tremendously covering the c5 square. So that was why Magnus played knight e4, bishop takes g3, knight takes g3, bishop g6 on the board. And I suspect there's going to be an a2, a4 in the very, very near future.
It's happening now because maybe black was intending knight b6, and big decision. How are you going to respond to that? Rook b8, knight a4, going on the counterattack. Knight b3 now a big threat.
Exactly, knight to b3. Don't want to walk into a fork there. That move is kind of disconcerting for sure. I'm thinking rook a3. That would defend the square c4. It kind of invites knight c4, I want to say.
Yeah, but that's the thing, you know, the other rook will come to b8 and then knight c4 is in the air.
Well,
okay, queen to d1 and now b4 played.
I'm not 100% convinced yet, unless there's knight e5. Knight e5 might be the way to kind of get the initiative back a little bit. The last few moves, black, although I must say this knight on a5
it's not making a great impression.
No, it
and
isn't.
we do see c5 played, and also on my board given an exclamation point. Yes.
Your board loves it.
My board absolutely adores it. And now the bishop drops back to c. No, I mean, queen d1 really didn't make a good impression because now black has taken over the initiative in the center.
Yeah, most especially what white had hoped to achieve with his queenside majority is passed. He doesn't have, okay, but here there's a very clever move, I think, on tap for Magnus. Knight to e4. Knight to e4 forks the queen, and it also threatens to play knight takes c5. If it provokes bishop takes e4, he gets to play rook takes e4, and tactically he defends the pawn on d4 very, very nicely. I think knight e4 was necessary and a very good move, in fact.
And now, because of your idea of knight takes c4, you've got to take knight.
Yeah, and that bishop on g6 was actually really good. It was eyeballing d3 and making whoa.
Okay.
No,
c takes d4.
Rook takes d4.
Rook takes d4.
The queen has to move. I guess it's comfortable on c7 as well as e7. For some reason, that move, I was repelled by it.
Somehow I didn't.
Was it even legal?
My radar as well.
Exactly.
But rook takes d4.
Rook takes d4.
The most natural move.
Absolutely. No, I don't think you want to play queen d2, knight b3, and go down that rabbit hole. Rook takes c4, queen e7 or c7. I haven't made up my mind.
Let's put the queen on c7 just to cover f4.
f4. Queen back to c7, protecting the knight on f4. Looks like the right way to go.
Well, Magnus going g3.
No, Magnus wants to get rid of this knight first. He's definitely going to recapture the pawn, but his idea is that after a trade on d8, that his bishop will actually be very, very useful on the slung diagonal. I can't fault him for that one. Queen to c7. I hadn't made up my mind myself. Whoa, c4.
Okay, but this is really strange. Rook takes rook.
Rook takes.
And now you also have knight to b3, but he's banking on queen e4.
Yes.
Targeting the rook on a8. Knight b3 played.
Queen e4. Well, we move our rook. Let's say, I don't know, let's say rook to b8. Yes, just he wants to play knight takes c5, and he's won a pawn. Has Nodirbek. Queen c4. White has compensation, but this should be advantage black.
Yes, so white's planning rook c1 on the next turn, and then just picking up the a6 pawn.
Right. I'm thinking a5. well, okay. He wanted to get out of the pin immediately. Queen to b6 is a very good move. Eyeballing knight takes a4. And avoiding, sidestepping your rook c1 idea.
And I see some cool moves, but it doesn't
Cool move?
cool moves, yeah.
Share. You share.
No, I was thinking rook c1, knight takes a4, and then perhaps some issues on the bank rank, but there's nothing there. And now we see rook c1, destabilizing the knight.
I think that was extremely well timed and a very important move, because what Magnus really wanted to do was play queen takes a6 and drive the knight away. And so rook c8, accepting a pin.
Right?
I hate being pinned.
I also dislike being pinned, and also you have bishop takes a6
In the air.
just as a kind of backup.
Right, I'm thinking you might want to play a5 or clock times effector.
Well, Magnus under the minute, and a5.
It really feels like
holding on to his extra material, and Magnus.
Gotta bless him.
Magnus 50 seconds ticking down, but I don't like the pin that black is facing.
On the other hand, a dream scenario for black is to bring this knight on g6
h4
to e7 to d5 to c3. If you can block the rook, then you're going to be very happy. I don't like h4 because the knight was not good on g6.
Oh, knight's coming into e5.
Here we go. Oh, he didn't go for the knight d5. He went knight f5.
Well,
a bit of a surprise.
That's a lovely move, actually, because it forces the white queen to move away, and there's no longer any pin against the queen. So queen c4.
Queen c4, there's a pin against the rook, and I'm threatening knight d7 wins.
Right, but you've got moves like knight d6, rook c7.
Rook c7, queen b5. Not a fan of knight f5. We'll see if it hurts. Queen d6, queen e8 check. He's overlooked something.
Oh no!
He's overlooked queen f8.
And now
trade queens and rook c5.
You can take on f7.
He's blundered. He's blundered it.
And
Magnus is winning.
Just like that, he is winning. The queen h8 is in the air. The black king is in serious trouble. And Nodirbek, 42 seconds on the clock. Queen steps up to d4.
Is h5?
H5 looks, absolutely. Just caging in the black king. 40 seconds for Abdusattorov.
The threat is the obvious checkmate.
There's no way out.
You've got to play g5. You don't like it, but you've got to stop queen h8 mate. You've got to do it.
And just to update you on some of the results, Arjun Erigaisi has defeated Kirill Shevchenko. So that's 2 in a row for Arjun Erigaisi.
Congratulations.
And he's reaching for the g-pawn, g6. Yeah.
He did it with 10 seconds.
Yes.
Very, very, very nervous.
18 seconds.
Knight
and
e5
the black king
check.
is in the firing line.
Knight
e5 check.
Where are you going with the king?
King
you got it. Go to f6 because king g7 invites queen g6 check. It's the simple and very powerful move, rook e1. I love this move.
Threatening queen g6.
Queen g6, queen h8. Ooh, he did it with not so much time on his clock.
3 seconds on the clock and there you see the players just blitzing out the moves.
Absolutely.
Knight takes g3, but the black king cannot survive when the queen and knight are sniffing around.
Queen g6 check. He's missed it.
He's missed it.
Queen takes f5 check.
And there was also...
He blundered his... Magnus blundered his...
God!
What the heck did Magnus just do? He blundered his queen. What a shock. Hold on, just look, check this out. Both players said knight takes f1 was a terrible move. Queen g6 check as played by Magnus was winning. And after king f8, you just take the knight with check, and then you take the knight and you're completely winning. Instead he went check,
rook
thinking
G7.
He was repeating the position, and rook g7 pins his own queen to his king. Magnus lost. What a catastrophe for Magnus.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
We've got